Here, the first topic of the chapter is Mendel laws of inheritance. The person, Gregor John Mendel, is regarded as the father of genetics. Is regarded as the father of genetics. Many of the scientists have been performed many experiments to know about these genes, genetic characters, recombination, mutation, and transfer of characteristics from one generation to the other generation. But even though those were all been successful, those are all not have been successful to explain about how these genes are being transferred or how this recombination is going to take place from one generation to the other generation. That's the reason it was being successful to explain about the movement or the transfer of genes from one generation to the other generation, and he is the first person to calculate the genes transferred in the form of or using the mathematical logics and statistical data to the field of biology. So he is being regarded as the father of genetics. And Mendel conducted hybridization experiments. As you all know the meaning of hybrid, right? Mendel conducted hybridization experiments during the term of 1856 to the year 1863. That means he has been taken almost about 7 years of time to give out the results. Next, Mendel conducted the experiments on pea plants. Mendel conducted the experiments on pea plants. The scientific name of the pea plants is Pisum sativum. He was the first person who proposed the laws of inheritance in the living organisms. Laws of inheritance in the living organisms. Next, Mendel investigations into the inheritance patterns. It was the first time that statistical analysis and the mathematical logics were applied to the problems in biology. Next, Mendel conducted the artificial pollination and cross-pollination experiments using the several true breeds of the pea plants. So these are all the reasons why his experiments were so successful, and he is being regarded as the father of genetics. Next, the reasons why the Mendel is being selected the pea plants as the experimental plants has been followed. The reasons are they are easy to cultivate because he has been seen that the plants are being cultivated in the kitchen garden of his homeland. So he has been taken the pea plants as the example, or the pea plants as the generative organisms are the plants. So those are first thing is about easy to cultivate. Next, easy availability in the pure breeding varieties. It was being known that there is availability of the wild breeds of the plants who are easier for him. So he has been selected the pea plants as a second reason. Next reason is exhibiting many contrasting characters. For example, when you take the height, it may be tall, short. Then when you take the flowering color, it may be white, violet, or you may take the shape of the pod, shape of the flower. So these are all the contrasting characters he has been observed in the pea plants. So he has been came across that, and he was having the conclusion that many contrasting characters was being seen in case of these pea plants. So he has been selected the pea plants. This will be the third reason. The next reason is flowers are not only self-pollinated but can also be cross-pollinated by emasculation. Self-pollinated, that means the organisms present in the nature, those will help in the pollination. Such condition is called or thus pollination taking place inside the plant itself is known as self-pollination. But even the cross pollination is going to take place by the emasculation process. That means bagging of the flowers. Emasculation is a process of bagging the flowers and making the cross pollination. So he has been selected the pea plants. Next, hybrids are perfectly fertile. That means the plants or the next generation what is been getting from parental generation, that must be fertile enough to give the next generation, or it should be fertile enough to give birth to the second, that means F2 generation. So these pea plants were enough capable of giving running up the progeny for the next generation. So has been selected the pea plants as the example. Next, complete their life cycle in a short period, right? So if any organisms having the long period of lifespan, he couldn't have been experimented for many times, or he couldn't get the calculative way or the calculative statistics within the short time. So he has been selected these plants. The next reason is the genes for 7 pairs of contrasting characters are located on 4 separate homologous pairs of chromosome. That means he has been selected the 4 particular chromosomes, and under these 4 particular chromosomes he has been observed that there was been presence of 7 different characters, such that what are all the characters being selected by the Mendel, will see by this. So Mendel selected 7 contrasting characters. Mendel selected 7 pairs of contrasting characters. Under that, the first contrasting character will be height of the plant, that is crossed with tallness and dwarfness, whereas the tallness is a dominant character which is being represented with capital T, and the dwarfness will be the recessive character which will be represented with small t and small t. Next, the next character selected by the Mendel was position of flowers. He has been observed that there was presence of 2 positions in the flowers. One is axial, other one is terminal. Here axial is the dominant character which is being represented as capital A. Next, terminal was recessive character, so it's been represented as small a and small a. Next characteristic selected by him was shape of the pod. Shape of the pod was smooth and constricted. Smooth is a dominant character which is having small s, and constricted is smooth is dominant character which is having big S and the capital S, and constricted is represented as small s and the small s. Next, color of the pod is having 2 colors. One is green and yellow. Green is represented with capital G as this dominant character, and the recessive character with the small letters. Next, shape of the seeds is taken up with the 2 characters. One is round and wrinkled. So again the dominant characters capital R, recessive characters with the small letters. Next, color of the seed coat is gray and white. Next character is color of flower, violet and white. So these are all the 7 main characters being selected by the Mendel to prove the inheritance characters by taking the example of pea plants. So the session will be stopped here. The followed session questions will maybe arise like definitions of these all is important terminologies might be erased for 1 mark. And next will be the question why the Gregor Mendel is regarded as father of genetics. These are all the reasons, and it might be the 2-mark question. The next question may be what are the reasons why Mendel selected the pea plant as an example or to conduct the experiments. This will be the 2-mark question. The next, Mendel selected the mention the contrasting characters being taken up by the Mendel. These are all the questions which will be arised by this cover topic today. Then excluding this, the question may be difference between homologous, heterozygous, difference between heterochromatin, euchromatin, difference between genotype, phenotype. So these are all the questions being arised by today's cover topic. Go through that and answer for the questions.